Hello everybody, welcome back to Let's Play Hearts of Iron for New Order as America. Let's continue on from where we last left off. So France has done it. They have, they won our war. They've reclaimed France. Look at them go. Magnificent bastards. Absolutely. We shall overcome. The greatest riot for sexual minority rights in the history of the United States began with a logistics problem. The Morris police had grabbed 28 cases of beer and 19 kegs of hard liquor, but with the patrol fans occupied elsewhere, they have nowhere to put it. Instead, they keep the patrons on lockdown as the wagons arrive, far too slowly for a police operation. The patrons, of course, are understandably upset, and those few not under arrest quickly join the growing crowds gathered outside the building. Many of them know that once the inn dies, so too does the living, breathing heart of gay culture in the greatest city in the world. They have everything to lose. As Mafia members and patrons are loaded out onto the wagons, many still struggling, a lone voice breaks out. We shall overcome. A protest song written for the South African War. Once receptive ears in another angry crowd faces another unwinnable fight. Growing cheers, growling, shouts of gay power echo from the crowds, which is swelled to bursting into the streets. Storm Del Evere falls to the floor, struggling against 4 officers, and all hell breaks loose. Records are unclear exactly what happens next. In a wave of anger, the mob pushes over police wagons, hurls bricks at the officers, retreating into the Stonewall, presses garbage against the broken windows. Many of the most repressed members of the gay community led the riot. The drag queens and the street boys leading a wild charge. Sylvia Rivera, notable drag queen, will remember it as the greatest night of her life. The doors of the inn are broken open with a battering ram. Officers inside prepare for a fiery last stand, and then the police trucks arrive. Fuel for the fire. We have, okay. Kick lines and tear gas. The initial reaction is one of rage. Officers bloody and coated with garbage, an inn wrecked with violence, and the fairies did it. The fairies. Violence exploded onto the streets as police officers take the law into their own hand and hammer their rage against the defenseless. The mob arrayed against them is far too gone to care. They form a rough outline of a cabaret chorus line and began to sing. Their voices are piercing in the late night, and the police have had enough of the needleid. They rush the line. Men and women get hammered with nightsticks as bedlam spreads out into the surrounding streets. Crowds run against police officers, laughing gaily like warriors in a light of burning cars. By the time the riots have come to a halt, Christopher Street is blocked. Half the cars on it are overturned, and every garbage can for a mile around has been emptied into the street. Witnesses describe an odd beauty to the refuge-strewn street, like a river of broken toys. Of course, the streets aren't the only thing breaking the news. All through the next day, crowds gawk at the burnt-out shell of the Stonewall. And when the next night comes, they are joined by songwriters, poets, activists, and tourists washing down the streets in a tide of exuberant energy. Allen Ginsberg notes on the way back that the guys there were so beautiful. They've lost that wounded look that fags all had 10 years ago. An incredible sight. Okay, we have 100 political power. Presumably very, very soon, we're going to get some sort of a decision, some sort of an event regarding Stonewall. Okay. The richest men in Babylon. And now, I'm going to read this first. And no, we'll click it first. It doesn't matter what order we do this in. The richest men in Babylon. On a 100 million television screen, the face of Robert F. Kennedy, President of the United States, flickered into being. He sat in the Oval Office, backed by the presidential seal, looking into the lens. With a sharp breath, he began. My fellow Americans, I come to you today to share with you my vision for America. On my travels across this great nation, the world's richest, I have seen into the abyss of poverty that so many of our brothers and sisters are born into and die in, a miasma of our depression from which there is no escape, even for the willing, who are not provided the tools and resources to better their lives. It is a fallacy, too often espoused by the callous and the uncaring, that people who are in poverty choose to be there, or are rightfully deprived of the means in the pursuit of happiness due to their color or class or faith. When any American denies to extend a helping hand to his fellow citizen, he denies America. Some are happy to turn their heads, or to snatch crumbs out of the mouths of the hungry. But I will not stand idly while American children starve, while American women die in childbirth, while American workers are paid too little to support their families. We are better than that. We have the means to lift every American out of the depths of poverty, and I intend to make that beautiful dream a reality. In the coming years, my administration will dedicate itself to the creation of innovative new agencies and programs to provide much-needed welfare to the impoverished Americans nationwide. We shall not rest until every American is provided the means of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those 3 unalienable rights that have been denied to all too many. Thank you, and God bless the United States of America. In his darkened mansion, a man watched the president's address. As Kennedy finished, his wrinkled, liver-spotted hand lethargically reaches to the receiver of the pristine white telephone sitting beside him. He dialed the long familiar number and listened to the dial tone. When it finally connected, he said with a scratchy smoker's voice, "We gotta do something about that guy." I mean, it's a little foreboding, don't you think? But we'll see how that goes. Presumably, are we still, we got a little bit more liberal. So I'm going to assume we're now at suspicious. No, we're still actually at equal. Excellent. But now we are on our way to Tokyo. 30 days. Within the month, we can finally discuss the treaty ports. We can discuss Hawaii. I want Hawaii. Is there anything actually on the American side that matters? Or on the OFN side? I don't really think so. I mean, it bolsters our allies a little bit, but do I care about our allies in any meaningful way? Because you just so you just cost me money. Invest in allies down under. Some support for the Australians. American decoders. I think the answer is honestly like no. Because we're unified, but as far as I'm aware, we're already decently unified. Yeah, very high. So I don't see a reason to go down the OFN tree. Like, if we had lost the war in South Africa, if we had lost some other conflicts as well, I could understand wanting to finish that tree. But if we're just living life and everybody loves us, I don't see a reason to worry about it too much. Okay, so we get our hospitals. We still have even more stuff to do. So nuclear power, was that one of those things that does cost us that boosts our GDP? No, infrastructure does. So you know what? Okay. Railways. No. Infrastructure. Dockyards. If that's the case, then let's build up our infrastructure. Again, it did say it maxes out at 500. But I think this should be good, at least right now. And it's pretty cheap, right? Like, what's infrastructure cost? 6K versus, you're 15, you're 20. The hospitals are 12. So we can get a lot of infrastructure done, which I'm very, very happy to see. No longer any effects of military austerity. But I want to... because yeah, surplus is still 4.3%. Okay, now it's gone down to... 1.16, and that's without any austerities or stuff like that. You know what? We'll do austerity for the military. We won't do it for civilian right now. And let us invest $4.6 billion. It's going to be a 0.07. So let's invest that money immediately. Now we're at 7% real GDP growth. Happy to see it. And we're not going to do a tax hike right now. Now the fact that we're even making any money at all is good. I'm happy to make more money. And GDP, and our debt's going down. GDP ratio is now down to 68.5, down from about 71 at its maximum. So it's on a nice trend. Might take a while to, bring it down to, below 4%, which is where the progressives want it to be. Actually, is there don't know where exactly it is in here. Moderately conservative. That is lower than it wants. But the GDP is not. So it wants 490 for the next election. We're at 460. So we need $30 billion by 72. Which isn't too bad. I don't think, at least. And with 204 political power, we can definitely go for the Social Security Act. Get that going. And that should now open up a vote. Literally nobody wants to talk to us? Okay, that's great. Right now, we are at 33, 46. 46 plus 5 is 51. We have a majority. Okay? We have a majority. Nobody wants to negotiate with us, unfortunately. But, I mean, a majority is good. I did see someone in the comments did say that we need 60 votes. I don't know how true that is. So just in case, I'm going to throw a save right now. I guess we only need to save... Wait. Okay, no. I just need to save... How, is this immediate? This is immediate. And this is 35 days. Okay. And presumably this will just get us some extra votes that we couldn't do otherwise. But again, it's 51. Like, unless I'm really, really bad at math, we're looking good. The treaty port negotiations. The assembled cabinet was silent, digesting the contents of the proposal before them. President Kennedy surveyed the room, knowing the enormity of the moment that was giving everybody pause. It's been 20 years since the end of the war, gentlemen, President Kennedy said. A decade or so since Eisenhower tore up the Akagi Accords and admitted Hawaii into the Union. Now it's our turn to finish what he started. The proposal to stand up to Japan at last and to demand negotiations over the treaty ports of San Francisco and Los Angeles would be the most ambitious and consequential diplomatic initiative by the United States in their lifetimes. The eyes of the world and of the American electorate would be scrutinizing them under a microscope. There would be no room for failure. The Japanese wouldn't simply fold, but it was clear that holding ports halfway across the world, a diplomatic nightmare and impossible to secure, was increasingly unattractive. How much could America push without being pushed aside by Japan in return? It would take a political power of the American government to ensure that successful return to the ports without giving way to the Japanese in the process. But a few concessions here and there might be useful in making demands further down the line. This will unlock a new decision category for the Honolulu Accords. There is a political power pool that gains or loses political power depending on how much we invest. Both Japan and America will be using the system. Whichever superpower invests more political power will gain all political power from the pool at the end of every given clause. Okay. Let's make history, gentlemen. Now have a new slot, which is not you. It's not you. The Honolulu Accords. In August of 1945, President Tommy Dewey signed the Akagi Accords, which ended the Pacific War in the humiliating defeat for the United States. The Americans were forced to surrender Hawaii and all other Pacific possessions to Japan, who also signed a 100-year lease on the ports of Los Angeles and San Francisco. However, in 1960, President Kefauver tore up the Akagi Accords and resumed a total embargo against the Japanese Empire, leading to a tense international standoff which culminated in the Hawaiian Missile Crisis. Recent diplomatic overtures have caused tensions to thaw and open up a path for negotiations to the Honolulu Accords, a new final settlement to the question of trade and sovereignty in the Pacific. America seeks to reclaim the treaty ports, while Japan desires a resumption of the critical oil trade with America. The outcome of the talks will be determined by the political efforts both sides invest into gaining the upper hand in the negotiations, and the talks could go very interesting directions should the negotiators think outside of the box. We're currently discussing the location of the meeting. Japan has invested zero political power. The United States has invested zero political power. Nobody's in the lead. And nothing here, so we just got to be in this little section for now. And presumably we'll get some sort of pop-up. Maybe the position of the Accords doesn't matter too much. Maybe that's what the event for Japan is. It's saying has invested -50. We're currently in the lead. France, West Africa has joined the OFN. In a development that is unsurprising but earth-shattering in its geopolitical consequences, diplomats representing the French Republic and the West African Federation arrived in New York to submit a formal application to join the Organization of Free Nations. Officials representing the two prospective members delivered addresses in a highly choreographed sequence. We come today to reaffirm our commitment to the principles of democracy and representative government, said West African Federation officials in a speech translated from their native French. It is only through coordination with like-minded nations that we can preserve the security of our people. The remarks were echoed by Pierre Médès France, a French official, in a long and winding address. France spoke on the nation's undying commitment to the freedom in the face of oppression, of perseverance in the face of decades of brutality. The applications are scheduled to be voted on next week. While new applicants to the OFN must technically be accepted by all members, this process has become a formality in recent years, with most membership decisions being dictated by the United States. Underscoring the fact, President Kennedy greeted the officials from the West African Federation and the French Republic shortly after their addresses. Speaking to the press, the president promised that the OFN would keep the torch of liberty alight across Europe and Africa. France and West Africa's imminent integration into the alliance has led to denunciations from Germany and Japan, and nations that allied with them. While German officials announced new military drills near the border to signal its displeasure, and the Japanese government has issued a statement criticizing wanton and destabilizing acts of aggression by certain nations. That's going to click, and I'm guessing they're joining, which is why this got a little bit of a pause. And there we go. I mean, look at this OFN. The Organization of Free Nations basically is all of Africa, essentially. Iberia will hopefully be able to join us. Disorderly federal army, weakened sovereignty, liberalization. Right now, the State of the Union is stable, which is good. I hope Spain will join us. That'd be like really, really nice. And on top of that, like if we go to economic sphere, I mean, okay, everyone in the Italian sphere, you know, it is what it is. But like we also have like most of Central Africa here is also allied with us in some respect. The Japanese extended olive branch. Recently, our diplomats have been talking over with the Japanese diplomats regarding the treaty ports. Luckily, IKEA Masanoke has given us the opportunity to choose where we would like to hold the discussion with the Emperor of Japan. While it's a very generous move, we now have to decide where the discussions will take place. The Prime Minister outlined 3 possible areas: Hawaii, one of our carriers, or Mexico. In his offer, the Prime Minister seemed to favor Hawaii. While this could give the Japanese an advantage, it would be courteous of us to elect these islands to host the negotiations. Alternatively, we could choose one of our American carriers to host the talks. It would give us the upper hand, but the Japanese may be reluctant about our decision. Finally, we could choose Mexico, a neutral party to accommodate. That way, neither American nor Japanese will have any major influence on the talks. The weather is also not quite nice in Mexico at the time of this year. So Hawaii is on... In his offer, the Prime Minister seemed to favor Hawaii. Japanese demand oil. Do I want to be... American aircraft carrier or neut? I'm either thinking Hawaii or neutrality here. I'm going to say... You know what? Let's open negotiations on a decent hand. We'll go to Hawaii first. I think that seems fine. France and African entry into the OFN. And Woodstock. The man on stage seemed to warp and then reform as he felt the strings of his guitar. Dozens of other men and women stood shirtless beside Eli as the sharp echoing sound of the electric guitar colored the morning air. There was a raunches of noise and yells that seemed to blend into the background. In the same way that Eli almost felt himself blend into the hot faceless mass of the crowd. People weren't quite so into it as they had been a few days ago on Friday, but when Jimi Hendrix strummed the alabaster work of art, silence lay like a shadow. Far out. Okay, so Japan, I don't know why they're already at -50. Political power plus 50. Mr. President, we have started our negotiation with the Empire of Japan about the potential reacquisition of our Californian ports. One big problem between our nation and the cross-border sphere is the fact that we do not trade enough. Because of this, the Japanese have demanded substantial amounts of oil to make up for their recent shortages. Simply put, the sphere lacks many of the oil reserves that we have here in the United States. Luckily, the Japanese diplomats seem pretty desperate to sign the contract with us. If we grant them subsidized oil purchases, the economy of the sphere will continue to functioning as we may regain our lost ports. If we help out the Japanese and the sphere helps us out, we could see a brighter relationship between our two great nations. We also have a chance to bring American workers back to work for us. Now the question is on the amount. How much oil will we give to the Empire of Japan? We could be generous and offer them a substantial amount of oil that they say they need. We could go down the middle and offer them a moderate amount of oil. Finally, we could give them a small amount of oil, but they may not accept the offer. We need to consider the Japanese plan to use the oil for. Plus 50 political power. So, I'm guessing that is here, huh? An offer, a terrible offer. I'll be nice. We'll be nice here. Japan's currently in the lead. But that's fine. So at the end of the round, does Japan get -50? Is this how this works? Guess so. Or do they get 50? We've invested 50 in here. But we'll be nice to them. That's a Supreme Court vacancy. And a complete success. The trade deal between the United States and the Empire of Japan has been finalized after days of proposals and communication. It seems like both parties are getting the resources they really need. The United States will have its ports in San Francisco and Los Angeles returned without conflict, and the Empire of Japan will be given an oil grant that will help them solve their widespread shortages throughout the sphere. The President and Prime Minister of the United States and Japan, respectively, shook hands on the deal just moments ago. No matter what, both parties hope that these negotiations will better relations between the two global superpowers. Workers both in California and the Japanese home islands rejoice as the nation announced the completion of the deal. Though the trade deal was complete, the diplomats of the United States and Japan still had work to do. Talks are supposed to carry on in the next few days. But one thing is for sure, there will be a peaceful end to these important negotiations. Excellent. We are currently discussing the first clause. Japan's currently in the lead. So again, we don't have the ports quite yet, but we will have them soon. We will have them soon. But I think that at least right now is a pretty good time for us to end this episode. So if you enjoyed, thumbs up. Not enjoying, you can always thumb down. You want to see more, subscribe, and goodbye.